What if the quietest boy in the room carried a voice powerful enough to stop the world? What if the child no one noticed was the one destined to be unforgettable? On a brightly lit stage of America's Got Talent, under thousands of trembling lights, a thin Filipino teenager stood alone. His hands were cold. His heart felt louder than the audience. And somewhere behind the judge's desk sat Simon Cowell. A man who had heard thousands of voices, broken thousands of dreams, and rarely showed surprise anymore. But that night was different. The boy's name was Miguel Reyes. 16 years old. Soft-spoken. Humble. He came from a small coastal town in the Philippines, where the ocean whispered against bamboo houses and electricity sometimes failed during storms. He was raised by his mother, Ana Reyes, a street food vendor with tired eyes and a fearless heart. She believed in miracles, even when life gave her very little reason to. Miguel's father, Daniel Reyes, had once been a local band guitarist. Quiet. Gentle. A dreamer who never made it beyond town fiestas. He passed away when Miguel was 10, leaving behind an old, slightly broken guitar and unfinished hopes. Miguel rarely spoke about his father. But he carried him in every note he hummed. People in his town knew Miguel as the shy boy who helped his mother after school. They never imagined that the silence inside him was filled with melodies. They never imagined that the small church choir voice would one day travel across oceans. The stage lights felt too bright for someone like him. The crowd looked too big. The judges looked too serious. And yet, somewhere deep inside his chest, there was something stronger than fear. Something inherited. Something waiting. Would his voice tremble and disappear like so many before him? Or would it rise high enough to freeze a man who never seemed surprised? That night, the world was about to find out. Miguel Reyes had always been the kind of boy people overlooked. He was not the tallest in class. Not the loudest. Not the one who demanded attention. He preferred corners. Window seats. The back row of crowded jeepneys where he could watch the world quietly pass by. At 16, Miguel carried himself with a softness that came from growing up too fast. After his father's death, childhood slowly slipped through his fingers. He learned how to count coins before he learned how to dream big. He woke up before sunrise to help his mother prepare food for her small stall near the bus terminal. The smell of fried bananas and rice cakes became part of his mornings. School came after that. Homework came at night. And somewhere between exhaustion and responsibility, music became his secret refuge. Miguel had a habit of humming when he was nervous. Soft melodies escaped him while washing dishes, while sweeping the floor, even while standing in line at the market. He did not notice he was doing it. It was as natural as breathing. Sometimes, neighbors would pause and listen from behind half-open doors. They never told him how beautiful it sounded. Miguel rarely looked at himself in mirrors. He never believed he looked like someone meant for a big stage. His hands were rough from work. His shoes were worn at the edges. His confidence felt just as fragile. At school, he kept his head down. When classmates talked about dreams of becoming doctors, pilots, or influencers, Miguel stayed silent. His dream felt too unrealistic to say out loud. But every night, when the house grew quiet and the world outside dimmed, he would take out his father's old guitar. One string was slightly rusted. The wood was scratched. Yet to Miguel, it was treasure. He would sit by the small window, staring at the ocean in the distance, and sing softly into the dark. Not for applause. Not for fame. But because singing was the only time he felt brave. Miguel's life changed the night the ocean grew violent. The storm came without mercy. Winds howled against the fragile walls of their home. Rain crashed like it wanted to wash everything away. His father had gone out earlier that evening, helping a neighbor secure fishing boats near the shore. He promised he would return before midnight. He never did. The sea that once whispered lullabies became a thief. It swallowed the small boat, and with it, the gentle man who carried unfinished songs in his heart. For days, Miguel sat by the window, staring at the horizon. He waited for a miracle that never came. He listened for footsteps that would never echo again on their wooden floor. At 10 years old, he learned what silence truly meant. The house felt heavier after that. His mother tried to stay strong, but grief left shadows under her eyes. The laughter that once filled their small kitchen faded into careful quietness. Miguel blamed himself in ways no one understood. He remembered the last thing his father had said, something simple, something ordinary. He could not recall if he had hugged him tightly enough. He could not remember if he had said, "I love you," loud enough. Regret became a quiet weight on his chest. Music, once a shared joy between father and son, turned into something painful. Every chord reminded him of what was lost. For months, he refused to touch the guitar. It rested in the corner like a forgotten memory. But grief does strange things. One night, when loneliness felt unbearable, Miguel picked up the guitar again. His fingers trembled. The sound was broken at first, uneven and soft. Then something inside him cracked open. He sang through tears. He sang through anger. He sang through the ache of missing someone who would never clap for him again. And in that moment, he realized something that both comforted and hurt him. The only way he could still feel close to his father was through music. But singing also meant reopening wounds. The stage lights felt blinding. Miguel could barely see the faces in the audience of America's Got Talent. All he could feel was the weight of expectation pressing against his chest. His name echoed through the theater. His footsteps sounded too loud as he walked to the center of the stage. Behind the judge's desk sat Simon Cowell, arms folded, expression unreadable. A man known for honesty so sharp it could cut through dreams in seconds. Miguel's fingers trembled. For a brief second, doubt whispered inside him. What was a boy from a small fishing town doing here? What if his voice cracked? What if the grief inside him swallowed the song? The music began. The first note left his lips softly, almost fragile. It floated into the air like a careful confession. Then something shifted. He closed his eyes. And instead of seeing the judges, the cameras, or the crowd, he saw his father sitting on the edge of their old wooden bed. Smiling. Nodding. Listening the way he always had. The fear loosened. The second line came stronger. Fuller. By the time the chorus arrived, the theater no longer felt like a battlefield. It felt like home. His voice rose with a power no one expected from someone so small and quiet. It carried sorrow, but also strength. It carried loss, but also love. The audience leaned forward. Cameras caught expressions changing, surprise replacing indifference. Even Simon's posture shifted slightly, his eyes narrowing not in criticism, but in disbelief. This was no ordinary performance. This was not imitation. This was not a teenager trying to impress. This was a soul pouring itself open. And in that moment, Miguel realized something life-changing. His pain was not a weakness. It was the very reason his voice felt real. The boy who once feared his grief had finally understood it. He was not singing to escape his loss anymore. He was singing because of it. And the world was finally listening.